This podcast is a Believe Network and Siete production.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the D-Lew Podcast. No, your eyes, your ears are not messing with you. It's not D-Lew, it's Gabi. What's going on? That being said, guys, this is the 100th episode. And we are so excited for you guys to be here. So this time we decided to kind of switch it up a little bit. And, maybe I would perhaps interview D-Lew. Normally he is the host and he does the interviewing. But this time I think we all need to get to know the man, the myth, the legend. That is Derrick Lewis. Hello, Derrick. How are you this evening?
I'm good. This is rather different. I actually get to keep my mouth shut during an open, which is new, but I'm really excited. And when I thought about, the 100th episode and I was, scratching and crawling as far as what do I do? I mean, literally, I was on this for like the last few weeks and I had talked to myself, does anyone really know who I am besides, me hosting this show? And you was like, well, maybe I should interview you. And I'm like, okay, let's do that. So I'm hoping I don't get thrown off of Believe Network by the time we're done. But
of course not. We're going to keep this very fun, very lighthearted. Like I said, I just think that people need to get to know you, and not just you, the host. Let's get to know some more about you, your history, and how you got here. If you're okay with that.
Sure, let's go. So again, fire away.
All right, sounds good. So obviously, if you're here, you're probably a wrestling fan, right? I think that's pretty standard that me and you get together in the same room. We talk about wrestling. Mm-hmm. That being said, kind of talk to me about what got you into wrestling. And I know as adults, sometimes we kind of go in and out of wrestling, right? You watch it for a while, you stop for a little bit, you come back. Did you have any of that with your wrestling journey? Talk to me about that.
Believe it or not, no, I never stopped. So let's take a trip back into memory lane. So I want to say back in maybe 1982, when I was about turning 4 years old, was my very first exposure to pro wrestling. Now, keep in mind, guys, when we're little, when we're young, our minds are like all over the place. It's not set on one specific thing. So maybe because my mother was a huge wrestling fan growing up, as well as her mom, my grandmother, God rest her soul, and they were big on, Georgia Championship Wrestling, and that was on TBS, Channel 17. Yeah, Channel 17. And my mom, I guess she had been watching it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And she had been sitting, she'll bring me in the living room and I would sit with her or whatever. But this particular, I guess, episode, I really paid close attention because it wasn't a wrestling match. It wasn't, anything like that. It was a very young Ric Flair cutting a promo.
Oh, wow.
That is what got me hooked to pro wrestling. So once my mom recognized that my eyes were glued to the TV, that was just a thing for us. So we would just spend time watching, the NWA, Georgia Championship Wrestling, who was an affiliate of the NWA, which later became, Jim Crockett Promotions. But we had a little bit of that. Then, of course, the WWF, right before it was on the cusp of the national expansion. So Bob Backlund was still the WWF champion at the time. This is right before he was going to lose the title to the Iron Sheik. We're talking 1983 now. Mm-hmm. So I did see Sheik lose the title, on Madison Square Garden Network in Madison Square Garden. He lost the title, was it 3 weeks after he beat Bob Backlund for the title? And then right when that happened, it was just like I got to experience the wrestling boom of the 80s, and it was just wrestling was everywhere. And I wasn't how do you say prejudiced towards one specific, I wasn't loyal. That was the wrong word to use, prejudice, but I wasn't loyal to just one brand. There was, the WWF, there was the NWA, there was AWA, which came on ESPN. Then there was World Class Championship Wrestling in Dallas with the Von Erichs. So I had a taste of all of that stuff that was happening. So I knew who these wrestlers were, male and female, tag team, the managers, the announcers, everybody. And then as I was getting older, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, I was getting, WWF magazine, but I was also paying attention to PWI magazine, The Wrestler, as we say now, the Apter magazine. Shout out to the great Bill Apter, who was an editor, for those magazines many, many years. I've met the man several times. He's a heart of gold. He's a really good guy.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the library, that was the encyclopedia, the dictionary of the information about, oh, there's more than just these four companies that I mentioned. There's all of these other territories. There's Continental down in the Alabama with the Fullers. You know what I mean? There was, the Missouri territory. There was Oregon with Don Owen, and that's where I got to know a very young wrestler by the name of Scotty the Body, who became Scotty Flamingo, who we all know as Raven. So that was my very first exposure to who were these wrestlers, understanding Hollywood, who Hollywood John Tatum was, for world class. So I knew a lot of the wrestlers, from back then. And it's crazy to think that, the majority of my life has been centered around professional wrestling. It's insane to even think about now.
Oh my goodness. So, you talked a lot about the older wrestling. So you've kind of seen, I hate to age you, but you've seen some of the older guys.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of wrestling today? Like, what do you think of the progression that wrestling has made since you started watching in the 80s to now?
It's crazy to think of, just when you think wrestling wasn't mainstream, it's always been mainstream. It was the biggest kept secret. It was the worst kept secret that it was mainstream. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times, people say, oh, I don't watch that fake stuff. Oh, I don't watch that. I don't. But if you look at, for example, if you look at this past Saturday's Bad Blood PLE, you saw Metro Boomin, you saw Quavo, you saw Killer Mike, who was front row. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
All those guys were wrestling fans. Offset, I don't think Offset was there, but Offset was a huge wrestling fan. There's been so many, entertainers that were entertained by the wrestling industry. You know what I mean? Like a lot of, personas in sports people take from wrestling. Like Ric Flair was ahead of the curve. I don't care what you think about him, but
Absolutely.
when you talk about, he was talking about jewelry, he was talking about his clothes, he was talking about his women, and he was talking about he was talking about the finer things in life. And a lot of your hip hop stars talk about that. But Flair was doing it first. He may have been a heel, but he was very likable because every man wanted to be just like him because of everyone wanted that lifestyle, that lavish lifestyle. So to see where wrestling is now, I mean, look at the stock price today, ladies and gentlemen, of TKO Groups, which is the parent company of WWE right now. That is the measuring stick in regards to how big the industry is. And this is no knock on what AEW is doing. And I'll give AEW credit because I feel having AEW around, I think, pushed the industry. It pushed the industry, and I think having TNA still still on and going. You know what I mean? The MLWs of the world is still ongoing. New Japan, I got to give them credit because when you think about, and I've always been a fan of New Japan. Going back to maybe early '90s, and Tatsumi Fujinami was the first wrestler from New Japan that I had an opportunity to really understand and study and everything. But if you look at New Japan, and I would say in the early 2010s, in the mid 2010s, when the metamorphosis of the Bullet Club and how the Bullet Club became very, very popular across the internet. And it's crazy to think that I was buying a Bullet Club t-shirt in Hot Topic. You were buying Young Bucks merch in Hot Topic. You know what I mean? So I was crazy. I took a picture of a New Japan Pro Wrestling t-shirt in Hot Topic. This may have been maybe 2016, 2017. And I shot MVP a DM. Shout out to MVP, who's about to do some really good stuff in AEW. I said, you were there when nobody was really talking about it. Because remember, MVP left the WWE in 2010 and wanted to go over to Japan because he wanted to wrestle. He wanted to really do some stuff with Chono, and the list goes on. And he was the very first IWGP Intercontinental Champion. So He actually put it on his feed too. He said, "Hey,
I love
somebody
that.
just sent me this, and this is before Bullet Club was cool." So it
Hmm.
really goes to show you how popular that the industry was getting, and I just felt it was just ongoing, and it was just these moves being made. The All In, and I gotta give credit to Cody and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega for doing the All In pay-per-view. That was another thing that has to be told. And when you look back in the annals of time, maybe 100 years from now, All In is going to be talked about because I felt that was a milestone moment in the industry where you got all these independent wrestlers that had the one day off, and that was September 1st, 2018. And they were able to put on a show in front of over 10 to 11,000 fans in
Hmm.
Chicago. Huge, huge.
And all because someone said they couldn't do it.
Actually, yeah, Dave Meltzer bet Cody
Hmm.
and the Bucks, I think, $1 that they
Hmm.
couldn't sell out a 10,000 seat arena, and they sold it out in under 30 minutes. And mind you, it was only advertised on social media. They didn't buy an ad,
There was no
nothing.
marketing team. There was none of that back in the day.
Absolutely.
It was truly word of mouth.
Hmm.
Insane.
And that just really goes to show you the heartbeat of the wrestling fan, and that how loyal the wrestling fans are. Because guess what? If you promote it and you book it, they'll come.
Hmm.
And I think during that time too, because let's face it, during that time, the WWE's booking wasn't necessary of a lot of people's liking. So, and I think the fans were wanting something different. They wanted something new.
Hmm.
And like I said, the independence was hot at that time, and it's still hot now, but I'm just saying it was cooking because you had Cody. He was all over the place. He had just left
Hmm.
WWE in 2016, and he was in Ring of Honor, and he was in TNA, and he was in all these other indies in the United States and abroad. He was in New Japan. He was the leader of the Bullet Club. It was all these things was happening, and the rest is history.
Again, I just love the fact that this all started because someone said you couldn't do it. Like, it just truly shows, like, you people use that as their motivation, and
Agreed.
I genuinely love that. That is so cool to me.
Hmm.
So I have to ask. It's a generic question. I feel like everybody gets asked, but I have to know, who are your top 5 wrestlers?
Top five. Oh
No, right,
God.
no, right, no particular order. Order doesn't matter. But I just feel like I honestly don't think I actually even know this question the answer myself. So like I know everybody else needs
If
to
I
know
have
like
to
who are their top
say,
5.
if I have to say, Bret Hart will be my number one.
Okay.
Bret will always be number one in my heart, no matter what. I would have to put the Macho Man up there. I would have to put. I got to put Nature on there. But you can't have a top five without Nature Boy Ric
I
Flair.
agree. I agree.
Nate, I put Nature at 3. Um, I would have to put CM Punk because Punk is my
Mm,
guy.
okay.
I'm a big Punk guy, and I would have to put a woman in there. And if there's a woman that I thought was a pioneer that doesn't get her just due, because although she was a part of the boom. As a matter of fact, she was in the co-main event of the very first WrestleMania. And I'm talking about the one and only Leilani Kai. Well wishes to Leilani Kai, who just had I believe she had hip surgery or knee surgery fairly recently, and she's doing physical therapy right now. So I definitely have to put Leilani Kai as one of my favorites because she was a WWF Women's Champion, and she was also a WWF Women's Tag Team Champion with Judy Martin, and they were known as a tag team called the Glamour Girls, managed by the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. They were both rocking the blonde hair, they had the
Hmm.
fur coats, and they had tremendous wrestling matches with the tag team from Japan known as the Jumping Bomb Angels. Ladies and gentlemen, go to the WWE Vault on YouTube or go on the network on Peacock. Check out the Bomb Angels and the Glamour Girls tag matches, especially at Madison Square Garden. You talk about they used to get some of the loudest ovations of the night because that's how damn good they were.
So I know another one of your passions is music.
Hmm.
That being said, kid, let's talk about theme music for some of our wrestlers. Who would you
Hmm.
say would be some of your favorite theme wrestlers? Some of your favorite theme music?
Theme songs, that's interesting because I got to give credit to Jim Johnston, who was very instrumental, no pun intended, and getting those WWF themes. And because also too, him and Jimmy Hart were also in the mix and make,
Mm-hmm.
because remember Jimmy Hart, for those that don't know, Jimmy Hart was in a rock and roll band in the 60s called the Gentrys, who knocked the Beatles off the number one slot on the Billboard charts with the song Keep On Dancing. That is a factual fact. Jimmy Hart actually knocked the Beatles off the top of the charts. But Jimmy Hart was singing a lot of those theme songs too. If you listen to Dusty
Mm-hmm.
Rhodes' theme, if you listen to the Big Boss Man's theme, if you listen to several of those others, and he was very instrumental in some of that. But if I would have to say, as far as theme songs over the years, um, oh man, I would have to say, I got to go with Triple H. You
Oh
know,
yeah, for
I got
sure.
to go with that with Motorhead. I got to go with him. I gotta go with Sexy Boy, considering Jimmy Hart wrote that
Wrote
song
that.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's still prevalent today. I would say Sexy Boy is one. Bret Hart's is, oh man, hear that guitar riff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I gotta go with Bret. I would have to go with believe it or not, I gotta go with CM Punk's ROH theme by AFI. I
Okay.
gotta go with them. I love that theme. Cult of Personality is more of a mainstream song. Mind you, Cult of Personality, the song is 36 years old. It came
Yeah,
out
sounds
in
old.
88. I remember when Living Color first came out with the with their first album, but I would have to say Punk's ROH theme is probably my favorite of his. Um and I would have to say another theme. I got to go with Taz from ECW
Mm.
when okay, so he used to come out the War Machine by Kiss in early
Mm-hmm.
ECW at when he turned
Mm-hmm.
from the Tasmaniac to Taz, but they did their own version of War Machine, but it was just survive if I let you. And he came up with that black towel and Bill Alfonso in front of with Team Taz. He legitimately looked like a killer in
Mm-hmm.
ECW.
Yeah, he
5'8", 248 pounds of just pure badassery. I
solid.
absolutely, yeah, 100%. 100%.
So I again going keeping with our music theme. I know music is very important to you and your personality. I know you come from a musical family. How about you tell me about that?
Wow. So my dad, the late Billy Lewis, he was a member of the Drifters. The Drifters, for don't know, they were a doo-wop group that started in the
Mm-hmm.
1950s. And an amazing woman by the name of Faye Treadwell, God rest her soul, and shout out to her daughter Tina Treadwell, who's doing amazing things in Hollywood. She sorted out my dad, and because my dad was out there, singing independently
Mm-hmm.
and everything, because that's how he met my mother, and I'll get to that in a second. But he joined the group in 1975, and he was a part of the group to about maybe the mid 90s, and he was doing some things on his own, after
Mm-hmm.
that. But you know, I can just remember the one thing I will say about my dad is that he never brought work home. Once he was off
Okay.
tour, he really didn't he didn't force feed the Drifters on me. He just didn't
Mm-hmm.
do it. And my mom, she started singing. It was crazy because if you guys can go back into the archives of an episode back in January of this year, my
Mm-hmm.
mom was my guest, and her and her friend Larry Patterson, my uncle Larry, God rest his soul, they started to do things, together. And then he knew some guy, I guess some guys, were looking for a woman, a girl, to be, kind of the lead singer. And she joined the group in 1968, 69, called The Pretenders. And they remade a song by the Manhattans called I Called It Love. Um, their manager, the manager of the Manhattans, he owned, the publishing and everything to that song. So they was
Mm-hmm.
able to make some changes with it a little bit. And my mom, actually recorded that record. And but she wanted to have a family, so she kind of, after a little while, she bowed out of it. And she wanted my dad to live his dream, and that he got to do that. But music was always a part of my life. The music was always playing in the house, no matter what. So I had an opportunity to listen to many genres, to many eras, male or female didn't matter. So I had a really good free education on, just about the songwriters, from back in those days, obviously with Motown and that team, with Smokey Robinson writing a lot of that stuff, a lot of those
Mhm.
hits. Smokey had a lot to do with that. Um, that time, and then of course she's coming into the early '70s, and the disco was starting the funk era, and there were rock bands are out during that time too. Then you had the disco era, and then you're entering the '80s with the what do they call oh God, the new wave era, as they say. It was in the '80s when you had a lot of synthesizers that would happen during that era. And then you had a resurgence of a very young Michael Jackson in the late '70s when he went solo with Off the Wall album. And he
Oh,
went
great
into
album.
orbit to have lived the Thriller era. Let me tell you something. Living the Thriller era was like out of this world. If social media, and I say this all the time, if social media was around during Michael Jackson's era, he would have over 1 billion followers on every single platform that's out there.
Yeah, he would
That's how
shatter
huge,
records.
absolutely. And to see him do the moonwalk on Motown 25, I watched it on TV. And I remember it vividly because I too tried to do the moonwalk and I got a splinter in my foot. I was four and
Didn't
a
we
half, 5
all?
years old.
Didn't
Yes.
we all try it?
And, but to see it live and everyone was talking about it. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? School and everything else. That was the water cooler talk, of see what did Michael Jackson do last night? And to see what Prince doing Purple Rain, the movie to promote the album Purple Rain.
A movie to promote an album is insane.
It's crazy,
Insane.
but it was pure genius. Michael
Oh yeah.
Jackson was doing short films. Like Thriller was a short film.
Hmm.
Bad was a short film. Remember the Time was a short film. Those were it was epic. You know what I mean? Then an incredible young woman from Detroit, Michigan, by the name of Madonna, who is my absolute favorite artist in the world. Obviously, her first record. Everybody was on the scene. It was a dance, and it was a nice hit in the
Hmm.
clubs. But to me, the mainstream record to me was Like a Virgin.
Yeah,
And of course, she
easily.
performed it, and she performed it on the very first VMAs where she was in the
Hmm.
wedding dress, and it was controversial and all that other stuff. So when you think about the '80s, I always look at those three: Prince, Michael Jackson, and Madonna, of the ones that were really leading that charge as solo artists, making a huge name for themselves, and captivating an audience of millions and millions of people all around the world. So there were so many, and there's so many artists that came after that, obviously, during that time. But I was just
Hmm.
highlighting those three because they were very, very important to my childhood. But music, to me is everything. That, and I shied away from wanting to be in the industry because I didn't think I was talented enough. I didn't think I just didn't have it. But luckily, here we are years later, and I have music out. So I
Hmm.
owe a lot of gratitude to, my parents for allowing me to just explore the library, so to speak, that we had in the house of all these albums. Because listen, I grew up in the vinyls era, ladies and gentlemen. I was actually off the tail end off trick of 8-track. I had an 8-track. We had vinyl, of course, for record players and cassette. So that's what I grew up on in the early day.
Do you actually have any vinyl still?
Oh, 100%. I have a few vinyls here, but I mean, my mother, forget about it. There's like a huge like tub, like a big bin, several bins of vinyls that my mother has to this day. Even when she was growing up, they called her the Queen of 45s because there was those little vinyls.
Hmm.
Yeah, she still has a bunch of those at the house. So I still have a few vinyls here, but my mom has tons of tons.
So it's interesting you say that. For those of you who don't know, I recently lost my mother-in-law, and one of the things that like my husband wanted was her vinyl collection, and we
Hmm.
got it. And like you said, she has like milk crates. Like she kept them in the
Hmm.
milk crates. Um,
Hmm.
and we just brought them over to the house, and like we were going through them, and like oh my gosh, the memories. And like she doesn't have like obviously they're remaking vinyls these days. Like she has the OG
The
when
original ones,
they
yeah.
first came out. Yes, and we're
Agreed.
just like this is just so crazy. But it just proves like music is one of the things that is truly universal.
100%.
Everyone loves music. Everyone loves the industry. Um, like you said, Michael Jackson, Prince, they're just no matter what country or where you were, like you were going to hear that music and there were going to be fans. Like Michael Jackson is the person who literally steps on stage and people just pass out. Hasn't said a word, hasn't sung a note, and people just pass out. Like that is just.
Let me tell you something. I could play the first, like if you hear this drum fill, you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. It's just certain things you hear it and you just know. You just know it.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like it's very universal because I'll be honest with you. I've seen Madonna now 25 times, and I've seen her in 2 countries in several cities across the United States. I have met people from Portugal. I have met people from Ireland, Italy, the UK. Oh my God, Philippines, Australia, Brazil, Colombia. I've met people from all over the world. I have friends today because of this one artist. How one artist can bring a body of people together under, different lifestyles, different cultures, different, everything that's so different about us. We all love this one artist. Music, you're absolutely correct. Music is so universal. Very important.
But see, honestly, we could almost say the same thing for wrestling, right? Me and you were hanging out at LAX at 5 o'clock in the morning trying to get some water and some keychains. And here we are going on 2 years later. Like you were one of the people that when wrestling hits, I immediately text and vice versa. We talk about personal lives, and just randomly meeting at LAX. And here we are, right? So you kind of almost say depending on the person, wrestling is also important because everyone knows The Rock. Everyone knows John Cena. There are certain names, such as in music, that when you hear, or certain theme songs you hear, you immediately go back to that era in your life. For me, I think it's the Wolfpack theme, right? Everyone knows the Wolfpack. Everyone knows when they see that wolf in the NWO, universal.
And that just goes to show you that because that was No Limit that was involved in that record and that partnership they had with them. So I think that was, I don't know if it was C Murder or Silk the Shocker that did that record.
C Murder.
It was C Murder. Okay, it was C Murder. Okay, so it's so music, and it's crazy because music and wrestling crossed over so much. I was just talking about WrestleMania 1 earlier. Cyndi Lauper was huge. It was a major factor in how successful the first WrestleMania was because she managed Wendy Richter.
Yep.
When Wendy Richter was wrestling Leilani Kai for the WWF Women's Championship at the first WrestleMania, which was the co-main event. And she had Captain Lou Albano and Girls Just Want to Have Fun. All these other things. So the music, and the Run DMC performed at WrestleMania 5 with the WrestleMania rap. The late Robert Goulet sang "Oh Canada" at WrestleMania 6. Aretha Franklin, WrestleMania 3, America the Beautiful. Ray Charles, WrestleMania 2, America the Beautiful. Gladys Knight, WrestleMania 4. Willie Nelson, WrestleMania 7. Reba McEntire, WrestleMania 8. I'm just listing off these names right now.
Top of your head, right?
The late great Little Richard, WrestleMania 10, which was huge. So music and wrestling, it all goes hand in hand at the end of the day. 100%.
And I just think it's one of those things, like I said, that's universal, that no matter what, there's always, no matter if you don't like wrestling or you don't, you like it or you don't, rather, I'm sorry.
Right.
Certain things are always going to transcend. And just those moments that you will never forget, little things.
Agreed.
You just named off 10 people that sang at wrestling events, and that's just the older wrestling events. Think of how it is right now when you have Meg Thee Stallion doing the theme song for
SmackDown. Yeah, think about it. Very young when she wasn't Nicki Minaj, but she was Nicki Minaj doing Victoria's theme. I Ain't the Lady to Mess With. She did that when she was on the come up. Lil Kim doing Trish Stratus's theme. So there's so much with the music industry and pro wrestling that think about it. The Fabulous Freebirds were one of the first pro wrestlers to come out the theme songs. Bad Street USA and Michael P.S. Hayes actually sang the song. You know what I mean? And it's crazy to think about that Michael Hayes was a pioneer, in regards to that. And because eventually, because think about it, it was a lot. If you watch the first couple of WrestleManias, there were some wrestlers that didn't have theme songs. Tito Santana didn't have theme songs for a while. It took him to maybe the late mid to late '80s till he got his theme, little Spanish theme and that type of stuff. But it's again, to your point, it's all universal at the end of the day.
And also, I think that honestly, your theme song kind of makes your personality, Like you have to think of like when you think of, for instance, the NWO, like they
Hmm.
were all badasses and like that guitar riff, like the music just fits them. And I think that's very important too in wrestling that your music fits your personality, your style. Like your theme song can make or break you.
That song was crazy. I just had Mark Ramondi on the show a few months ago. Shout out to
Hmm.
Mark Ramondi. He's actually has this book about the NWO, which is on pre-sale right now. If you go to Amazon and place your pre-order, tell them I sent you. But that song Rock House, that's from the NWO, that is stock music that was in the Turner Entertainment library.
Wow.
So it wasn't necessarily a theme song that was written for the NWO. They were just happened to just pick some stock music, and it's iconic to this day.
Hmm.
So it really just goes to show you it was just the right fit.
I mean, AJ Styles' theme song is actually not his. It's someone else's that didn't work out. I think I forgot who the artist is. I'm sorry, who the wrestler is, but they came out to it once and was like, nah, I don't like it. And now, whenever you hear it, like, whenever you know it's AJ Styles. Like, it is crazy that
Right.
someone turned that down. But at the same time, like we're saying, like, if it didn't fit, didn't fit.
Right. Exactly.
So I know we talked about kind of three albums that were very important to you and three artists that were very important to you. What do you think of music today? I know it's a very big difference from what it was, when you were coming up and like the music that your parents performed. What are your thoughts on the music industry today?
This is the part where I might get thrown off Believe Network, ladies and gentlemen.
No,
Um,
no.
as a recording artist myself, and as somebody that works really, really hard at my
Hmm.
craft, doing it the right way, the honest way, I just think that the industry is watered down. I
Okay.
think there's not a lot of originality anymore. I think that, and it could be a lot. It could be due to what the labels are doing. Is what the label is pushing is more about image rather than just talent. Now there's some talented ones out there. Don't get me wrong, but I
Absolutely.
just feel as though that there's a lot of trash out there that's on our airwaves, and I just feel as though that I'm in touch with a lot of independent artists.
Hmm.
They are far more talented than the ones you see that are signed. So I just wish that the industry could go back to the originality aspect of it. Now it's far easier now to put out music, right? Like
Hmm.
there's thousands and thousands upon new music that's coming out every single day across all platforms, mine included. I just dropped the record on this past Friday, which is called Make It Count and Vote. And really what it is a remix of Every Second, Make It Count. And I just wanted to make it a different song, and it doesn't sound like the original at all. It sounds totally different. But my goal was to help people register to vote. You know what I mean? And I do it for the pure love of the industry. I want to do things that aren't the norm of today. I want to be able to put my spin on things. Somebody told me one time that my lyrics are too wordy, that my lyrics I need to dumb it down a little bit. And I'm just like, this is what the industry's become now, because it's all about a dope beat. And that's great. But I also want to have a message out there. And maybe, like I said, the way I write is how my favorite artists write. They want to
Hmm.
put a deep message and make you think and make you realize, oh wow, there's a lot of things I put in there. And it's crazy. The way I was able to take excerpts from Every Second, Make It Count, and put into this remix, and it's just like, oh, that's deep. The system, we will shake it. Oh yeah, we're gonna take it, and I'm repeating it over and over again because in the original, the system, we will shake it.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, we're gonna take it. That, but when I'm saying the system, we will shake it. Oh yeah, we're like I'm just saying it very monotone but very serious. It kind of was like, hmm, okay. So that's the difference between then, and now. It's like I just feel that I think a lot of independent artists should be highlighted more. I think that and again, I'm gonna piss some people off when I say this. There's a lot of scammers out there that
Unfortunately.
want to take your money and promise you the world and say, oh well, I can get you this, or I can get you featured in this, or I can get you featured in
Hmm.
that. Now there are some honest ones out there that I've met. Jonathan P. Wright, you're one of them. Shout out to you. And Radio Pushers. He highlights a lot of independent artists. I'm included in that. But there's, like I said, but there's a lot of shitty people in this industry that are being exposed today. And I'll leave that for Jaguar Wright and Orlando Brown to talk about, because that's a little too deep for this platform. But I just think that we need to push aside a lot of the dishonest people out there, the gatekeepers, and really put the focus on the really good ones that are out there, and
Hmm.
highlight the talented people that deserve the shot. I mean, heck, I put you this way: there's far more talented artists than I am, and I admit that. It's cool, you know. But at the same token, I just feel as though that a lot of people that are far deserving of it than the ones that are out there need to shine. That's just my opinion.
Okay, so that was safe. That wasn't too spicy. We're good.
Yeah,
We're good.
yeah, because I'm
We're not gonna get in trouble. We're not. We're
I
not. Yeah, I'm
tend I
not
tend
here to
to I
get you in
tend I
trouble.
tend to go off my rocker sometimes when I talk about stuff that I clearly see, and this is, like I said, there things that we kind of knew, they're coming to light now. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
sometimes you just got to tell certain people no.
Sometimes you just gotta know when to go home. Who would be your dream collaboration besides your parents? I feel like collaborating with your parents would be great. But who would be your kind of someone who you would like to work with?
And Madonna, like, no lie, I would love to do a dance record with her that is so energetic, that is so powerful, that I want the whole world to set the whole world on fire. Like, I would love, first of all, I admire her work ethic. For you figure Madonna's 66 years old and she is not slowing down.
Not no baby.
She's not slowing down. And I would love to just be in just the studio sessions alone. I want to pick her brain. What would you put this here? What do you want to put this here or there, and why? You
Hmm.
know, and just work with somebody, a veteran like that. But I wanted to be a dance record, and like the collab she did with Justin Timberlake on 4 minutes to save, 4 minutes to save the world.
Save the world.
Like, yeah, that produced by Timberland.
Hmm.
I like that trade-off they were doing in the song,
Hmm.
but I want something a little bit more dancey, very, very almost EDM. I would love to do her. I would say her EDM album, MDNA, um, was epic. There's a song on there called "I'm Addicted" that is probably one of my favorite tracks on there, because it is just deep bass, I'm addicted to your love. I like that. Like, man, I would have loved to have done that song with her. But even like my record "Every Second," like I would have loved to have done that with her. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But there's others out there. I would love to collab with Boys the Men. I would love to collab with them. Those are my favorites in from the time that Cooley High Harmony first came out in 1991. Those are my favorites. Nate Morris from Boys the Men. That's my guy. That's the one that was like, you know what? I'm gonna be just like Nate. He was just so smooth. You know,
Hmm.
um, those are ones. Let's see. I would love to, man, if I could, and this is like on the rock side of things, if I could do a song with like Metallica or something like that,
Ooh, yeah.
would be pretty cool, because their stuff is heavy, very, very heavy guitars, everything. I would love to do something with them. So, like I said, I'm a music schizophrenic, and I'll be the first to admit it. So I can dabble in rock, I can dabble in EDM, and pop, and R&B, and all that stuff. Like, I would love to. I'm not gonna rap. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna.
That's
I
fair.
guess you will not see me doing that. I'll leave that to the professionals. I'll leave that to them.
We all know our limitations, right? We all know what we're good at.
Absolutely, and I'll be the first to admit it, man. But um, and I would say there's another one in the pop genre. It will have to be Lady Gaga. I think I would love to do something with her. Like I would love to do again on the dance end because I think
Hmm.
like the song like Just
I
Dance,
was gonna say
it'll be
just.
like Just
Mhm.
Dance is my jam. Um, Poker Face is one. Dancing in the Dark from her the Fame Monster album. You know what I mean? And I was a little bit jealous of Bradley Cooper singing "Shallow" with her. You know what I mean? Like that was an epic record that she did for the movie A Star Is Born. So those are the few artists that I would like to work with. You know, someday if I had the opportunity to, I would love to say, hey, let's get to work. And I mean, I could spend countless hours in the studio learning, learning, and just
Being a
absorbing.
sponge.
Right, absolutely. I one thing, and I don't give myself credit often for stuff, but if I could tell, I could say that I'm a great listener, especially for people that have done it, people
Hmm.
that are uber successful in this game. That I could just sit there, and I've done it before. Well, I just kind of just sat back and just have people explain things to me. D, you should do it this way and why. Shout out to Electric, who was my sound engineer when I recorded every second. And man, the song, it's crazy. I listened to the demo version of that song about a week ago, and I kid you not, I cringed because the way that I thought what it was going to be, nah. And Electric took me. He said, "Listen, we need to do it this way, and here's why. You need to cut this and maybe add that." Maybe
Mm,
vocally you could bring this down and maybe you could put the highs here. And it's really explaining as far as you have to outperform the track. Because right now the
absolutely.
track is outperforming you. And I'm just
Mm,
like, ooh, okay.
noted. Noted.
Yeah, 100%. So I owe a lot to him. You know, I owe a lot to Aswad Samak. God rest his soul. He just passed away a couple months ago. He, again, another guy that was very instrumental in my very first record that I did called Selfish Pride. It was a ballad. Here's the crazy thing about that record. I was going through some shit at the time, a lot of shit. And I am not editing that out, ladies and gentlemen, because this is 100% raw, authentic me. I was
Hmm.
going through a lot of things at that time,
Hmm.
dealing with, relationship stuff, dealing with just a lot of things. And I have been writing music for years,
Hmm.
writing it, just writing lyrics, getting ideas. It would do nothing with it. And I wrote this song in a day and a half, which had never been done before in my history of writing. And I was like, all right, you got 6 months, Derek, to do this, or don't bother writing music again. So my nephew A.O. Royale got me in contact with his sound engineer, Stefan Mosley, who was living in Jersey at the time, now is living in Germany. But he and I did a studio session and we knocked the song out in no like we literally built the track from scratch. That's me playing the piano on Selfish
Oh
Pride. The
wow.
main melody, it's me playing the ba 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 ba. That's me playing, and
Hmm.
Stefan did the rest. And my sister had introduced me to a swad, and a swad was like, "Yo, bro," he said, "the song is missing a lot of little elements, a lot of little things." So he helped me with some background vocals on the record, and he was like, "This is why," and I'm just like, "Oh, now it makes sense. It makes sense." And of putting those pieces, especially when you're dealing with R&B, like you have to really bring that home, especially on a ballad. You know, when you're singing a ballad, there's obviously with some ballads, there's a lot of sadness that comes with them, and you want people to feel it. And that record, number one, helped me heal from things that was happening at the time, but no one even knew I was even recording music. Like I wanted it to be a total surprise.
Oh, wow.
But on my birthday in 2016 is when I made this huge announcement that I was going to be doing music, and people were just like, "Wait, what?" Like all they knew I was acting at the time.
Hmm.
All I was doing was my film and TV stuff, what have you. I had put this podcast to rest, for since was it? I did 7 episodes. That was 2014. So I put that to rest for a little bit, and then I was like, you know what? I thought it was going to be a one time thing with music. I thought it was going to be a one and done. And here I am 8 years later, and I'm still at it because deep down to the depths of my soul, I love music and music loves me back.
That is such a cool story that I did not know.
Yeah.
Um, I love that. That's great.
Hmm.
Especially if it was truly a surprise for like your people that know you, they were not expecting it. Like that's a really
Yeah.
cool thing to do.
Yeah.
And
And
here we are, still here.
I had shot a music and I shot the music video on top of that.
Hmm.
Like I'm doing all this stuff behind the scenes. No one had a clue. There may have been about 10 people on Earth that knew that I was doing this music project.
Wow.
And it took us about 8 hours to film the video out in Queens, out there, Rockaway Beach. So shout out
Hmm.
to Irene Hernandez and Rico King. They were both my actors in the music video, along with me. Peter Iengo, Ashley Vander Warren, who was also, they were on production for the video, and and Cameron Taddeo, who edited the video, who did the editing, and I was a part of the editing process too. So it was very tight knit, and I really wanted to show people other things that I could do
Hmm.
besides, because for years I did, I was a drummer in the drum bugle corps activity for so many years.
Hmm.
And I put that to rest, and I just really wanted to chase my dream and be in the entertainment industry, first with acting, then with the podcast, which, we'll talk about in a bit, where I put the bed for a little bit, and then I got to the music thing. And it really shaped me in realizing that I can be more than one thing. And I don't have to be pinned down or pigeonholed into being just one thing. And that was super, super important to me, to prove to myself that I could do it. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Proving to myself that I'm able to write music and have it to be the way that I see fit, and be able to collaborate with others, and being able to just really have a great time doing it. So that means a lot to me.
So you kind of spoke on it a minute ago. Tell me how we got here now. Like, how did this podcast come about?
Okay. So I got to give a huge shout out to a friend of mine who passed away in 2014, Ian Price, better known as Ian Chaotic. I met him through his dad at my job in 2002. He's a big
Hmm.
wrestling fan, and we became friends instantly. We talked to each other almost every day, because he had his own radio show when he was in college.
Hmm.
And I don't know, one day, I want to say maybe January 2010, he said, I think it's time we start doing our radio show. And I'm like, what do you mean we? He was like, yeah, you and me, we're going to talk wrestling. We're going to talk WWE. We're going to talk TNA. And I'm just like, all right, I guess I'll be your sidekick. Whatever. Just whatever. And we were doing it. And so March of 2010 is when we started the show. I
Hmm.
think we were doing it on was it on Thursdays, I believe, or Tuesdays? I think, no, it was on Tuesdays. It was on Tuesdays. And it
Hmm.
was live. It wasn't taped. It was live.
Hmm.
So we would cover shows. We would talk about topics. We would talk about, even his friend Dave would do his horror movie reviews and stuff, and I kind of lay out a little bit. But I would say about 2012, he was like, yo, man, you need to get off of your ass and get yourself a show. And I'm like, well, I'm an actor. I'm no podcast host. I'm not, none, I was looking at it. I'm just helping you.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I said, I'm just helping you do your thing. I said, I'm just in the background. Like, I didn't see myself as hosting anything. You know what I mean? I just didn't see it. And he just kept staying on me and staying on me about it, staying on me. And an opportunity presented itself. I was listening to a show called Patriots Extra Radio, it was like a fan, you know, radio show about the New England Patriots. And I called in one day, and they said, yo, man, you want to be on the show as a co-host? And I was just like, I guess. And it led to me eventually having more radio experience than those guys, thanks to
Hmm.
Ian. And there were times where they said, Derrick, you host the show. You run with it. You run with it. This is in 2013. So there were
Hmm.
times where I was actually hosting the show. I had to give injury reports. I had to do transactions that was happening, trades, a trade deadline, what were we looking like towards the playoffs and all that. Then I got the sad phone call on January 31st, 2014 from his dad to let me know that my friend had passed away. And I cried a little bit because I know Ian wouldn't want me to cry, but I knew right then and there that I had to start. Wait, sorry, sorry.
I understand. I understand. Have a minute.
Mm,
Breathe.
mm, mm.
Breathe. Inhale, exhale, baby. Inhale, exhale.
Yeah, I I knew. I said I gotta do this,
Hmm.
and that's when I created the first D-Lew podcast poster, the artwork that
Hmm.
you'll see on it's out. You could see it on the video that I put out, the hype video for this week is the
Hmm.
very first artwork that I did. It was just a selfie that I took on the New York City subway with a Yankees hat, my Dre Beats, and my shades. That was it. That was the first. And I had hooked up with Blog Talk Radio, and I was hyping it up and hyping it up at the time. And my very first guest was an actress friend of mine. That was March 4th of 2014, I'm sorry. And her name is Tanya Thompson. Her and I had met in an acting class with Tracy Moore in New York City. And she was doing a movie herself, you
Hmm.
know, um, based off of her life and everything. And I had auditioned for it. I had auditioned for it. And we were talking about the film and everything to promote that. And it was because of that she ended up getting me booked in a movie 7 months off, was it 4 months later, in a movie called Where Hearts Lie. It's crazy how the world works.
Hmm.
And my second guest was Rico King. He was a model, again, the guy that he was in my music video.
Hmm.
Kobe Person, who was a social media personality. Traz Messiah, who was a recording artist, comedian. Kiana Dancy. Um, oh God, I'm trying to think of who else was. Miss Bubbles was actually my last episode after my seven, and I did 7 episodes. And I knew at that time, I said, this show isn't ready. I said, for the way I want it to be, the way I want this show to look, to sound, and everything of the sort, I said, I'm just not ready. And I had to be honest with myself about that.
Hmm.
So I kept saying I can relaunch this anytime I want. But literally, I could have. There was
Hmm.
times I think in me, and then mind you, this is 2014, so maybe I must say like maybe like 2 years, 3 years later, I was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about bringing it back," and and I'm just like, "Nah, this ain't it. This is not it." And I kept doing it over and over and over again. So fast forward to I want to say maybe 2021 or 2021. The music promotion company Radio Pushers, they do podcasts also to highlight their up and coming artists like myself. I was
Hmm.
also a guest on those shows. And Patience J, who was there at the time, and then Jonathan, who was also there, they needed somebody to host a show because the person that was hosting it wasn't there. They couldn't do it. Patience happened to tell Jonathan, yo, Derrick used to do podcasts, right? And there was like, he was like, you've been sitting here this whole time and you didn't tell me. I was just like, I didn't even think I hosted the show. He was like, dude, like, you need to be doing this.
Hmm.
So he had me do his We Built Different podcast, which I still do, from there for the young artists and everything. I still do from time to time. I still
Hmm.
do that. And I interviewed Angie Stars, who was on my song Espacion. So that's how her
Hmm.
and I connected. There's been several, people that I've interviewed. I probably have interviewed probably maybe over 150 to 200 people at this point. And they're only maybe 10 to 15-minute interviews, but it's still
Hmm.
highlighting these artists. And I want to say summer of 2023 I'm sorry, summer of 2022 is when I got the vision. I said, now is the time.
Okay.
Now is the time. And I said, let me work on logos. Let me work on. So shout out to Vito Williams, who did the first um, artwork and also the font that you see with the D-Lew Podcast font. That's part of his. He'll be forever part of this show. And I want to say maybe September 2022 is when I did my remote interview with the one and only Chrissy Monroe, who was seen on Love and Hip Hop season 5, her own reality show that was on Amazon Prime called Finding Chrissy.
Hmm.
She's model, actress,
Hmm.
you name it. She's been in the industry a very, very long time, and her and I had connected during the pandemic. And when I had asked her about, because I wasn't sure if she would even give me a chance, and she was like, "Yeah, just let me know, and I'll be more than happy to help you out." So I had did all of these interviews. I interviewed, as a matter of fact, I went to a Radio Pushers conference, music conference in Miami in November 2022, and I interviewed a rapper out of the Bay Area. His name is Mobbin 101, and a recording artist out of Chicago, Walt Jackson. So I knocked those interviews out. So I was just knocking out interviews because I wanted to have as much catalog as possible. So when this thing launches, so I launched back on January the 19th. I put out a hype video of who was my first guest, and the rest they say is history. And I want to say, was it a week and a half after the fact? Believe Network and I got to talking, and I don't know what happened, but through the grace of God, this was able to come to fruition, and I got signed. And what was crazy about that whole situation is that the day that I got in contact with Believe was the day that I found out I was going to be on Wheel of Fortune. So what I did is that I flew out to LA for Wheel of Fortune. Once I took my COVID test and everything, I checked into my hotel. I took a lift to Manhattan Beach, which is in the LA area, to Believe Studios, and I had them shoot all types of content for me because I was going to put out this announcement that I signed with Believe Network. So I was able to do that, and I knew what I was going to do. Like, I was like, once I filmed Wheel and all that, the next day I'm on a flight back east, and I'm already on the plane doing work for this hype video, editing on the plane while I'm doing this. And I want to say mid-February is when they made it official. A press release came out about it, and I was beyond excited, and that led me to getting press credentials from WWE for WrestleMania, and that's how I met you. So it's just really crazy how, like, me finally taking a bet on myself, to do all of these things and getting here. It's just crazy. It's like sometimes I don't look backward about stuff because, especially when it comes to my like business stuff, because it's like, to me, it's a thing of the past. It's a thing of the past. I'm already about, okay, what's next? What's next? I already did this, and I get bored really easily, by the way. So it's like I have to continue to move forward with stuff. But just telling that story just now about the D-Lew podcast, it's like, holy crap, like this is a huge journey. So the fact that we're celebrating, 100 episodes right now, it's I didn't know if it was ever even possible again, because again, I had been delaying it and delaying it and delaying it because I just didn't think it was the right time. But as they say, timing is everything, because when you strike gold, it's all going to just lay out for you, and you can just continue to move forward. And I am very fortunate that I met a lot of good people, through this process, with relaunching the show. I couldn't have asked for a better time to do it. It's crazy.
Um, so with that said, I'm gonna stop crying. I just wanted to, I know I've given you your flowers before, but you very much encouraged me to step out on my own wing and do my own thing. I know I've been talking about, like, me and you been talking forever. We know each other for like going on 2 years now. And like I've always wanted to do a podcast, but like I just never, you always like, girl, just do it. And I'm like, no, I'm scared. You'd be like, Gabi, just do it. So you were very important to me starting my podcast and to me getting into like taking this seriously, because like I just see how great you do, and like the great things that you've been doing. It matters in life.
Yeah.
I just thank you, because you are a very big part of like, and I know I'm just starting and I've got so much to learn, and like you are just the wealth of knowledge that I genuinely appreciate. So for you to just say that like you kind of bet on yourself and here you are 100 episodes later, it's truly inspiring to me. I just want to thank you for that, even for like allowing me to be on your show as often as I'm here. You allowing me to be a part of your 100th episode and allowing me to interview you is just like, just thank you, man. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. And like I said, this is I had a lot of knowledge passed down to me, and I'm not one of those where I gatekeep, because to me it's like, well, you're either jealous or you really want us. No, you don't want anyone to really succeed or do something greater than you. So for me, I'm not a gatekeeper. I try to, you know, not so much instill, but just kind of encourage people to say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, there's a way to do this. Now, I'm not saying doing it my way, because what might work for you may not work for me, and vice versa. I always tell
Mm-hmm.
people, because at first I was like, oh, I want to do it this way, but then I had somebody tell me, no, Derek, do it your way, what works for
Absolutely.
you, because in that way, that's gonna, you become, that's your identity, So for me, I have a certain vision for the show, and I'm always willing to listen. Now, if there's things you suggested that I do, as far as the show is concerned, then I'm like, oh, maybe I should do that, you know Sometimes if I had to do an emergency episode when the Punk incident happened in AEW, I'm that was 4:30 in the morning. I had to do that, and thus, that it got done. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, when I look at, over the the time that I've had, a lot of interviews and recording, and again, this is not just a pro wrestling podcast. All that was pro
Mm-hmm.
wrestling heavy, there's a gentleman in AEW that has a podcast that he's had it now 11 years, and I kind of followed in his footsteps because he's also a musician, an actor, pro wrestler, and I was just like, I kind of want to put it in that realm because of not because of the person, but just the vision.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, I have a hand in, the pro wrestling space. I have a hand in the music. I have a hand in acting, so I'm able to do and having just knowing people, you know, that was willing to come on and talk about what they're doing. And I'm no snob, I
Mm-hmm.
don't give a damn if you're just starting out. I had Sebastian, who's in ties with Ric Flair. He hit me up, wanted to be on the podcast. I'm like, absolutely, bro, come on on. It was his debut album, and we talked about it, and I was able to do that, and it was great. It came out great, So, I just want this podcast to grow and to go places and to be able to you know, get people to come here and just listen. And like I said, if you like wrestling, great. It's for you. You got a place here. If it's music that you like, you go in the archive, listen to a lot of the recording artists that I've had on. I had JD Williams, who was on The Wire, who I've known for 37 years. He and I was in fourth and fifth grade together.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's crazy because it's like I was just like, hey, if you want to be a guest, yada yada, just send me an email. He shoots me a DM. He was like, when I'm coming on. It was crazy because I didn't do it. I didn't think he was gonna, come on my show. And then next thing you know, people was like, wait a minute, when were you gonna tell me you knew him?
Right.
Because I don't go around bragging about who I know. I don't go
100%.
around bragging about who I'm friends with or whatever. Because it's like they're just regular people that not just they're really doing really cool things that
Mm-hmm.
we're able to talk about it. So, you know, I'm just very fortunate that, I, got, in touch with people that they were willing to give me a shot, to, give me a chance, give the show a chance, to talk about whatever is that's going on in their life and their careers, and thus putting the shine on the show. So, I'm very appreciative of having yourself, on, to talk, pro wrestling and things that your opinions, and because I think people that are very intelligent in this genre, because there are people that talk wrestling that, quite frankly, I don't want to talk to, because
Understood.
when you talk out of your ass about stuff and you just want a hot take, I don't believe in the hot take, because that's trash to me.
Agree.
I'm all about having intelligent conversations about ideas, and maybe they should do it this way, or maybe they should do it that way. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, I just think that being able to have intelligent conversations about, and there's stuff that you and I have disagreed on with
I was gonna
certain
say we've had
topic.
some
Yeah,
friendly banter, some friendly debates, but it's all respectful. It's all in love.
100%.
So like
Yeah,
it's never that, you know what I mean? Like it's never that with us. It's just like we
no.
have different opinions. I'm gonna hear you out, you're gonna hear me out, and then we're gonna talk about the new thing.
I mean, even when we crowned we had the end of the year awards, there
Mhm.
were some we agreed upon, but there were some that we were across the fence on. We are like, whoa, wait a minute. But we respect each other's, opinions about it, and
Respect your
respectfully,
absolutely.
yes, I think that's pretty much the way it is.
All right, guys, before we get out of here, I think we need to lighten the mood a little bit and have a little fun. So we're going to play a game of this or that. Sound
Okay,
cool?
sure.
All right. Ric Flair or Macho Man?
Macho Man.
Scorpion Deathlock or Diamond Cutter?
I would have to say the Diamond Cutter.
Temptations or the Supremes?
Got to go with the Temps.
Edge or Christian?
Edge.
Biggie or Pac?
I got to go with Big.
Vegas or Miami?
I'll have to say Miami. Because there's a beach.
Man,
That's why.
that's real. Mankind or Dude Love?
Mankind.
Roman or The Rock?
I was at Dwayne's first match. So I got to go with him. I always got to go with The Rock.
China or Stephanie McMahon?
The ninth wonder of the world. China.
Aretha or Al Green?
Aretha or Al Green?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll choose Aretha because Al Green had hot grits thrown on his back while he was asleep. So I ain't going with that. So I got to go with the Queen of Soul.
That's real. Well, thank you again for allowing me to be part of this special episode, allowing me to interview you. I definitely had fun getting to know more about you. There are things we talked about that I didn't know, so I know for a fact that your viewers do not know as well. That being said, you guys can find me on social media at Charm City Gabi. Derrick, tell us where we can find you.
Oh, great. You can find me on all platforms, not Facebook. It's the real D-Lew. On Facebook is Derrick T. Lewis official page, but the D-Lew Podcast is you can find at the D-Lew Podcast on Instagram, Twitter/X, and if you can just go on the search part for Facebook, you put the D-Lew Podcast, and you can find it there as well. And don't forget to stream and again, you can stream my my new record that's out now on all platforms. Make it count and vote. And if you haven't done so already, I'm not, because every state has their own regulations in regards to the limit of when you can until you're able to register to vote so you can vote on November 5th. I encourage you to go to vote.org. Make sure you're registered so you can vote on November 5th, because this is one of the most important elections of our time.
Absolutely. That being said, we will see you all next time. Hope you've all enjoyed the show.
All right, you too.